Neighbors here. This is the College Countdown on the Rogue Media Networks. Once again, your host Josh Neighbors here. Glad to be with you. Find us on Twitter at CC Podcast JN. Want to thank the folks at Rogue Media, including Corey, for giving me the opportunity to have a new show. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to grow this thing as much as we can. If you don't know me, I used to be the host over at Locked On Big 12. Also was a host over at 365 Sports, Crystal Ball College Football of the Big 12 Watch. We're expanding our purview in college football coverage on today's show. A 3-loss SEC team. Should they be in the college football playoff? Will they be in the college football playoff? We'll break all that down and a whole lot more coming up. Also, our Saturday 7, the 7 biggest games across college football, picking those against the spread. And we'll talk about the implications of those games and what is at stake in those, not just college football playoff, but conference championships, smaller schools, whatever we deem to be those best games. It's a choose your own adventure. Once again, at CC Podcast JN, like the video, sub to the channel, and leave your comments as well. So I've heard this talking point a whole lot about should a 3-loss Southeastern Conference team make the college football playoff? And I don't think it's like, I think, first of all, we all acknowledge this. It's not just a cut and dry answer. I think some folks would like to make it a cut and dry answer, but it's not. It's going to be a year-to-year situation. It's going to really matter, like, okay, what team? The brand of that team will matter. Who are the wins? Who are the losses? The other teams involved. And so I think it's really important just this year in general to make this a one-year thing. Don't think about any years outside of this season. Let's take a look right here. Here is what you need to know about the teams right now. This is what we're seated at with 2 weeks, basically 2 or 3 weeks left in the season. I think most teams have played 9-10 games, right? So I think most teams are around that number. Right. So Oregon is number 1, Texas number 2, BYU number 3, and then Miami number 4. Those would be your top 4 seeds by conference winner. They're not the top ranked teams, but that conference championship puts you in. There's no need to really worry about that. So let's just act like these are going to be the teams, right now. Then Notre Dame, Tennessee in 8-9, 5-12, Boise and Ohio State. Ole Miss, Penn State is 11-6, then Indiana and Alabama in a 7-10. So to think about who would be a 3-loss SEC team, like you have to think about those possibilities, right? Who would possibly be the 3-loss SEC teams that we would be talking about in this situation? Well, let's go to those college football playoff rankings. We'll go to the ESPN rankings to take a look at these so we can kind of work from there, right? So when you go to the SEC schools, we're just going to kind of take everybody else out for a second. You got Texas there. They're at number 3. They're kind of imply that they're the conference winner. Tennessee is at 8-1. Alabama's already at 7-2. Ole Miss is at 8-2. Georgia is at 7-2. A&M is at 7-2. And so I think that kind of wraps up, the next thing. You got 3-loss teams: South Carolina, LSU. LSU feels already out. Missouri 7-2. I mean, they could play their way in, but I really don't think they will. Sad considering I'm a Mizzou Tiger, but that is the state of affairs right now for them. So let's take it by these 2-loss teams. All right. You look at Alabama, and I think the FPI is a really good way to look at this football power index because they've got a good, I think, kind of head on their shoulders with, the numbers really, because it's more of a predictive model anyway. They've got Alabama as a number 1 team, right? And that's because when you look at Alabama, their defense is playing well. Milrose got it rolling. They are just kind of almost impossible to stop. And I think you've seen that in their last 2 games, Missouri and LSU. I mean, you can see it right here. They're outscoring teams 76-13. Okay. Those are 2 quality wins. LSU comes on the road. They've got that win against Georgia, obviously, which is a big one for them at home. South Carolina win looks better and better each day. So if they win out, I know it's not crazy what they've got the rest of the way, but if they win out as a 2-loss team, they're definitely going to be in. The thing for them is, what is the third possible game that they could lose? Well, I think in an SEC championship game, if they were to lose to Texas or they were to lose to Tennessee, maybe, but the issue, I think you're going to have this issue in the CFP era. I think there's a pretty good chance that if a team loses to somebody twice, they're probably not going to get in. It's this theory here last year, right? So last year, Washington plays Oregon twice, and Washington beats Oregon twice. At the end of the season, you could easily argue that Oregon's a top 12 team, despite the fact they've lost to Washington twice. Here's the problem, though. If you lost to another playoff team in the field 2 times, and besides conference championships, there's a selection committee selecting the rest of the teams, you probably shouldn't be in. This is not the NFL, obviously, where it's like, okay, let's just say the Eagles beat the Commanders twice, but the Commanders still end up having a pretty good record. Well, they get the wild card. They get the wild card because that's the way it works. No, I mean, they won their way into the formula, but it's going to be hard to justify it by selection if you're like, okay, well, the 4 seed, they're a 3 seed or 2 seed, like, yeah, they're a top 4 seed, they're a top 4 team, but losing twice to that team is not good on your resume, and somebody else might get selected. It's especially going to get harder if Alabama's lost the same team twice and they're a 3-loss team. That's the hard part. You'd almost rather lose to Texas. Losing to 3 different teams would be helpful because you don't have the blemish of like, all right, you went up against a playoff team twice and lost. I know it's like, well, wouldn't they have lost to multiple playoff teams? Yes, most likely in this situation, but kind of making it different teams, I think. I mean, you could feel differently about this, but I think losing to the same team twice is more of an indictment. Just because, like, you could say bad matchup, sure, but I think repeated loss, same situations, it's kind of like, you could get a better matchup, better game. But also you could make the argument if it's different teams, you could say, hey, different kinds of matchups, different teams, you still lost all of them, right? To me, though, I think being a repeat offender is not good, particularly Oregon's case, because I know it was a road game in neutral field, but like neutral field's kind of the true test. So if you lose in a neutral field setting, and once again, if you all feel different, let me know in the comment section. But I do think this is an interesting concept, like how it looks, on a year-to-year basis. But this year in particular, for Alabama, I think they might be able to lose a third game because their metrics are so strong. And because they've got those 3 quality wins, South Carolina, Missouri, at LSU, because the rest of the way for them, I mean, there's nothing really that's going to help them that much, right? Mercer won't help you. Oklahoma will not help you on the road, and Auburn will not help you because Auburn's bad. So those 3 wins don't really help you the rest of the way. At Wisconsin, you blew them out. That's kind of a decent win too. The Georgia win, obviously very, very good. Well, I said 3 wins. It's 4 wins, right? The Georgia win, South Carolina win, Missouri, LSU, but you really don't need any of these 3. And I'll even stack Wisconsin up there as well, because Wisconsin's what? They're 5-4. So quality win on the road, whatever. So for Alabama, I think you feel pretty good about their situation. If you go to the standings of the SEC right now too, for Alabama, they are kind of in a spot where they're in good shape at that 4-2 mark because, well, either one of Tennessee and Georgia is going to take another loss. Right now, you prefer Georgia wins because you've got the win over Georgia in SEC play, right? So you want a tiebreak against them. Or there's a bunch of different situations, so whatever. But just in general, you have a tiebreak over Georgia, and you want them to be elevated so you can get up there too. And also, Texas and Texas A&M have to sort things out between them as well. So you're in good shape in that spot. Now, I know there's a bunch of SEC tiebreaker situations and it goes to common opponents, whatever, but at least you know that there are going to be 4 teams in and around you that are going to take losses, right? You know that either Georgia or Tennessee will take a loss. You know that either A&M or Texas will take a loss, right? So you know that that's going to happen. So if Alabama does end up in a championship game setting and they get there, I think you'd hope it's Texas if you're saying, hey, situation, you lose close, and you lose close. I'm not sure exactly how it has to play out for them, but still, like, I think because of how strong their wins are, I feel pretty comfortable with it. And I'm usually like, it's Alabama, it's a brand, but I think they've got a pretty good case. If Tennessee, now here's Tennessee's problem. I don't think they will end up as a 3-loss team, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. With Nico Iamaleava out, they could lose at Georgia and they could lose at Vanderbilt. I do feel that way. And it gets a bit more tricky for them because that 24-17 against Alabama is their best win. And I know the OU win is a ranked win technically, but we know OU is not good. So really for them, what props up their schedule is NC State and Alabama. And now, I mean, what is NC State at this point in time? NC State is 5-5. Right. So Tennessee is going to have a bit tougher of a problem with it. It's just going to depend on that weird injury thing, though, because what we learned in last year's playoff is that quarterback injuries, winning despite them, can actually hurt you, which is kind of ridiculous. I don't think that should hurt you. I don't think that should be counted against you. But in this situation, it could be very well, very easily counted against you. We know because we saw it happen last year. So Tennessee, from a 3-loss perspective, I mean, you could blame the quarterback injury, but if Nico comes back, he might be in good shape. But to me, their wins, they're just not strong enough. The good thing is, I think they can beat Vanderbilt without him. Maybe they can beat Georgia without him, but I'm skeptical at this point. So Tennessee in okay shape because of the quarterback situation. But I mean, as he goes, so is the entire team. So it's kind of almost a holding pattern for Tennessee, and the quarterback thing throws them into a bit of flux, right? It could hurt them. It could help them. If they lose twice and he comes back, well, it's good news, right? If you lose twice, he doesn't come back, you're in trouble, right? You're in trouble for sure. If he comes back, we'll see. But I think that's kind of an odd situation right now. Texas A&M, another school. This is the problem for A&M, is that they got smoked by South Carolina, right? They're getting smoked in that game doesn't necessarily help you, I don't think. Although South Carolina played really, really well. I also think the 2 quarterback thing hurts them. Both their losses, not bad teams, Notre Dame and South Carolina. Best win they've had is, I think that Missouri win 41-10 was the most impressive that they looked. But the Arkansas win was decent for them too. LSU win pretty good, but LSU's kind of fallen off just a little bit here. But you've got opportunities, obviously, with the Texas game. So that Texas game can be a huge capstone for you and make your resume look a little bit better. LSU, I mean, once you get Texas and you get that win, you got Missouri, LSU, and Texas. It's going to depend on who that third loss is and how it looks. I think if that third loss is Texas, I don't think they get in. I feel pretty good about saying that. I don't think a third loss to Texas does you many favors. That Notre Dame loss doesn't look bad, but I mean, I think people's thoughts about Notre Dame are a bit colored, right? So I think Texas A&M, I'm kind of not totally cool on. I think the one for sure I feel pretty good about is Georgia. Georgia looked bad at times, and the way they've looked, I think it's a hard sell to be the Georgia Bulldogs right now with how bad their offense has looked. And they're 2-2 away from home. It's not been a particularly good team, away from home. The offense has sputtered, so I think that makes it really hard for them. Ole Miss, the problem is that Kentucky loss is a crater for you. I know both your losses are a combined 6 points, but for you, the wins, I mean, the best win you have is Georgia. Your weak non-conference will hurt you. South Carolina looks good. Arkansas looks good because the way you beat them. But I just think that those 2 wins, your best 3 wins just don't look that good. And at Florida, probably not going to be that good of a win. Mississippi State, probably not that good of a win. Even in the championship game setting, I have a tough time. As good as this defense is, because I think they've got one of the best defenses, they've probably got the best front in the country. But to me, it's a hard sell on this because their loss to Kentucky is bad, and they were not able to stack up as many good wins as some of those other teams that we've talked about. So I'm trending no. Right now, the only big yes, it feels like, is Alabama. I think Texas is also a no. Now, Texas, I mean, you do have to lose 2 games in pretty quick succession, so that'd be a huge problem for them. Missouri also, I'm with that too. If South Carolina wins out, I mean, I don't think it's crazy, because look at this. They smoked. So South Carolina smokes Oklahoma on the road. They beat Vanderbilt by 21. They beat A&M by 24. They'd end up having 3 ranked wins. The problem for that, I guess, I mean, there's a way they could play themselves in the championship, but the problem is they've got 3 conference losses. They probably won't be there, right? So that makes it really challenging. That's why they probably will not get in. But I mean, on the way there, they'd probably end up, beating a couple extra top 25 teams. So they end up being 3-3 against AP top 25. Not good enough, it appears, but they could get there. Missouri can't make it there to be a 2-loss team, and I don't think they will anyway. So I think right now I'm feeling pretty confident that Alabama is the one that I feel the best about being a 3-loss team, just because that strength of record, strength of schedule for them has been such a good, it's been a pretty good indicator. Like they are, if their defense keeps improving, they look like a better football team. They've shown that the last couple of weeks. They're starting to get healthier. They're starting to look good. Milrose really starting to play well. They've kind of got all the narrative pieces and the on-field pieces, I think, to be that 3-loss team that makes it. So that's what we have in that category. Now we'll go to our Saturday 7. Saturday 7 is something that we do each week. We'll look at these games, look at them against the spread. Now I input these games and the spreads before on Tuesday. So the old rankings are in there. But we'll pull these up. We'll go through these, take a look at them. Here's Saturday 7, 11 a.m. And we did it by time window, how we break it up here. 11 a.m. on ESPN, Clemson at Pittsburgh. Clemson is catching 1 point. I feel like Pitt, their offense is going in the wrong direction. I think Clemson laid an egg against Louisville, and I think we saw them last week kind of get back to basics. Now, that Pitt front plays really well. It could be a rough day because I don't think we believe Cade Klubnik is that good, right? But I think this is obviously a huge matchup in the ACC. I think Clemson feels like the right side. It doesn't feel like they're going to drop back-to-back games, especially after going on the road last night and getting a tough win. But make no mistake, Pitt's a better team than Virginia Tech is, in my opinion. 11 a.m. on ESPN2, Tulane and Navy. This is a huge game in the American Athletic Conference. And we don't, poo-poo other conferences here. As CFP goes, this doesn't have much interest to me. But Tulane right now and Navy are 3-4, 2-3 in that conference. Tulane, to lose Willie Fritz, to go on and have this kind of a season, shows you what kind of a program you are. I think that is a huge deal, in my opinion, just to have an operation that runs that well. They have been fantastic, especially on the ground this year. They have run for 28 rushing touchdowns. Mekhi Hughes is already 1,000-yard rusher. And for them, the quarterback spot, Darian Mensah, who's just a freshman for them, has emerged. And so they look like, somebody's going to come after Darian Mensah. I think that's pretty clear at this point in time. Let's see if they can keep him there. But, the 6'3", 200-pound kid from California, pretty good passer, doesn't blow you away all the time. But to me, he kind of looks like a type of player that you want. And look, he took 5 sacks in that K-State game. He's taken 13 total. But since that game, and then against OU, he took 3. So if you take out the OU and the K-State games, two of the best teams they've played, he's only taken 5 sacks on the entire season, right? That's not that bad. For the rest of the games they played. And that's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 8 games, 8 sacks total. And also, they're 8-0 in those games. So Tulane on the rise. I don't think they're a college football playoff contender. Boise feels like they're just way too ahead. Now, if Boise were to lose in their conference championship game, that would open things up, right? The conferences that are, the non-group of 5, the non-power 4, obviously the American, you've got Army and Tulane in that one. You've got also CUSA, which, there's no ranked teams in that league. You got Independence, you got to count Notre Dame obviously being involved in this, but they don't count towards the top group of G5 champion. Boise is right there, right? So they've got to win out. Pac-2, technically a league. I guess Washington State is threatening, but because the conference is so small, they're not going to count them. And then the Sun Belt, there's no team. Maybe Louisiana could creep in there. But I'm telling you guys, if Army does lose a game, and it's very possible Army could lose to Navy, right? And they've also got Notre They got Notre Dame next week. So there's a possible loss, or a likely loss for Army. Now it's not a conference game, but that hurts them and in terms of your rankings, so you could jump over them. Now, if they win that game, it's going to be really, really hard. You're going to have to beat them in the conference championship game. You would anyway. But the Navy game, they could easily lose as well. And they've also got UTSA and Jeff Traylor, 4 and 5, but still like a tough out ostensibly, right? Or at least could be. So Tulane Navy to me interesting just because it's about positioning. I mean, whoever gets this is going to have the inside track to be that second team because they'll have a tiebreak as well. 3:15 on SEC Network. It's Missouri and South Carolina. Both these teams are ranked now. The line climbs because Mookie Cooper, who hasn't played, super well this year, but also Brady Cook are doubtful for Missouri. Mizzou needs Brady Cook. They need him bad. Drew Pine, gutsy performance last week, but South Carolina could have their way. This could get ugly because for Missouri playing ranked competition this year, and especially when Brady Cook is out, it has gone sideways fast. So I think South Carolina, a really good chance to just keep building on what they've done. Shane Beamer and company have been awesome. And I think that's a tough place to win, man. Tough place to win. They've done a good job. Arizona State and K-State at 6 p.m. on ESPN is such a great game. I'm a Big 12 guy. And so this is a Big 12 title eliminator right now. But the fact that we're saying that about Arizona State, once again, credit to Kenny Dillingham for what he has done this year. For K-State, I thought this could happen this season. I love Avery Johnson still, but he's young. He's getting better. He's improving. It's pretty normal for guys to be like that. But right now, these teams are tied in that next spot down. Arizona State, for what it's worth, they have got wins this year in the league against KU, Utah, Oklahoma State, UCF. So not a top tier. They've got a twosome of BYU and K-State next. So I don't think their last three is going to be challenging. It's at K-State, BYU, and at Arizona. It sounds like Brent Brennan over at Arizona might be fighting for his job. So because of that, you're a bit concerned about how desperate they're going to be. But to see this game be a big game and matter in the Big 12 championship standings and see ASU at 7-2 shows you how fun this league is. And also shows you, man, like not everything has to be about the playoff. To see ASU climb the way they have is just worth it in general because it's a great story. 6:30 on NBC, we've got Oregon, number 1 in the country, at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's been Jekyll and Hyde this year. They just kind of had something going against Penn State, but not able to finish the job. And so kind of last chance to pull off that big victory this year. But, you look at what happened for Wisconsin this season. They had plenty of opportunities against very good teams in big spots, and they were not able to get the job done. They're 4-3, and then 5-4 rather overall, 3-3 in the Big Ten. But you look at the teams that have come and played them. Alabama 42-10, right? They had Penn State come play them 28-13. They've got Oregon coming to play them at home as well, and then Minnesota. And so their wins have come against Northwestern. They've come against Rutgers. They've come against Purdue, South Dakota, Western Michigan. They've beat inferior competition. They just have a really tough time going up and stepping up in the next weight class. And this part of the evolution of this program is that, and this is part of the hard part with the expansion of the Big Ten, is that the programs that are hurt the most are, the ones at the bottom, but it's those Wisconsins, it's those Iowas, because they were a bit closer. And now you're putting 3 programs. I'm not going to count UCLA, but you're going to put 3 programs in the league that are middle to top or should be middle to top. And so Oregon is better than you and they're top. Washington ostensibly should be better than you, right? USC should be better than you. And they lost to USC this year. And they'll probably lose to Oregon too. So you don't want to have a season where you lose to 2 of the new members that you play, because that kind of shows that, hey, like your gap to the top just increased. There was already a gap between you and Ohio State and you and Michigan for most of the time. It increased a little bit now. The big one, 6:30, ABC, Tennessee, Georgia. This feels like the UGA get right game. Right. This feels like the UGA get right game. I know Tennessee's defense is first in stop rate and has been really, really good. I know Nico Iamaleava is not playing. It sounds like he's not going to play. Right. But still, it feels like Tennessee's offense is dangerous, but like they've kind of gone as Nico has gone. But Dylan Sampson is kind of that ace in the hole. I do feel like Georgia's run defense can step up and play really well in this game and still, secure it for them. And this seems like one of those games where it's good to get Carson Beck back on track because you can use that running game. They not run the ball particularly effectively, but use that play action. And if they stop the run well, I think they'll win, especially if Nico is not playing. So I think that's the big key, obviously. If he's not playing, I'm going to take Georgia. I saw Barrett Slee, who I used to work with and respect a lot, say that. He thinks he can still win. I'm just not there because they need him to be good. And you can tell the moments where he's not. The Arkansas game, chief among them, when he's bad, things go sideways for them. And I'm really impressed with the job Josh Heupel's done. I mean, that Alabama win was really, really good. But for them, it's been a bit more of a grinding effort. You had 28-18 against Kentucky, 33-14 against Mississippi State. I know Nico leaves in that game, but it's been a bit more of a grind than you think. I mean, you look at these middle section games. OU 25-15. Arkansas is a 19-15 loss. Florida 23-17. Alabama 24-17. Kentucky 28-18. Mississippi State 33-14. So I think the red zone is going to be here, key too. Who's kicking field goals, who's scoring touchdowns, or even forcing turnovers, will decide that. A 10-point spread there. I'll put out some picks every Saturday morning as well. Follow me on Twitter, guys, at @JoshNeighbors_. You all can find the show at CCJN. Also on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what your thoughts are about all the things we discussed today. All right, folks, I appreciate you all. We'll see you all next week.